We're ready. All right. So we are recording here and we continue to have folks join. We're want to be respectful of everyone's time. Certainly, this time of the year is crazy for everybody. For those that are new and raise your hand real quick if this is your first time joining us around the fireside. Awesome. Lots of new folks. That's great. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for joining. This has been such a fun series this year, fall series and fireside chat. Thank God it's cooled down a skosh in the Phoenix market where I'm located. So I'm not like totally sweating in my flannel here. So that's all good news. For those that are new, we're going to talk a little bit today, and kind of give some information around this concept of a key log, right? And before we dive in, I'm going to share kind of these key components with our Angle Health gathering today. So I want to take everybody, close your eyes, right? And take you back to a different time, to a logging town nestled deep in the forest where timber was king and the river was its highway. Every spring, thousands of logs floated downstream, guided only by the current and the strength of the crew. But among all those logs, right, there was one that mattered most. That's the key log. It was the one that, if jammed, could literally stop everything, clogging the river, stalling the town's economy, threatening everybody downstream. This story always takes me back to my summers as a little boy and even a teenager in the north woods of Wisconsin. Raise your hand if you're familiar with Hayward, Wisconsin, the musky capital of the world and a huge logging area, where every Friday night at a summer camp, we had a key log ceremony. And it was a time to share something meaningful for the week, an accomplishment, a thank you to another camper or counselor, or just a moment of growth, really, that kind of stood out. And that was my childhood, right? Each of us would toss a small wooden key log into the fire, a simple act that carried reflection, gratitude, and a connection. These moments taught me something extremely important. And I joke around with my parents. I'm like, thank God you sent me to summer camp, right? Because I pretty much learned so many things at that time. That progress doesn't always come from doing more. Sometimes it comes from recognizing what really matters and freeing that key log that's been holding everything back. In our world, right, employee health insurance and benefits, that same principle applies, right? We identify and release those key logs. And this is how we serve, right? Whether you're serving brokers, your employers, members, we unlock something far more powerful, better access, better outcomes, a smoother flow for everybody downstream. So as we sit here today, let's find our key logs, right? And I think Ryan is going to probably share a few along the way as it relates to sales and service. And the ones that we find, let's, again, once freed, everything moves again. So without further ado, I want to introduce our featured speaker today, Ryan James Miller, speaker, author, and sales coach. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. We have had the opportunity of spending lots of time together over the years, and we are super too excited to have you around the fireside today.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's always fun to get to shoot the breeze, share some ideas and strategy, and hopefully help at least one of the dozens and dozens of people on the call.
Awesome. Not everyone knows your story, right? And you've inspired me and probably thousands and thousands of others. You've worked with sales professionals across multiple industries. What drew you into specifically coaching benefits and kind of really making a name for yourself in the insurance space?
Oh man, I'll make this quick. So I'd been in business for about 3 years. I started my coaching consulting business in 2011. Around 2014, I was introduced to a regional insurance broker here in Southern California that would become one of the founding members of the Alera Group. And so I was consulting for them as an outside consultant. I was helping them bring a technology product to market. And the more that I built a relationship with them, I grew to love the CEO and the COO. And one day the COO came to me and said, "Hey, um, we want to hire you." And I said, "I'm not interested in a job. I'm good." I was bivocationally a pastor of a church and running my own business, and things were great. And they kept pressing, and eventually I ended up caving. They were a great organization, really good values, had a pretty crazy mission that I wanted to jump on. And so I jumped into EB, officially started there in June of 2015, and I was off and running. Um, and I thought that was going to be probably a 7 to 10 year run. God had other plans. In the midst of that, I experienced a personal tragedy. October of 2017, my wife and I and five of our friends were in the crowd in Las Vegas when the mass shooting happened. One of my best friends was one of the 58 that was killed that night. And I went back to work 2 weeks later and said, "What the hell are you doing with your life?" And that was a crazy question to ask myself because I was making good money. I had a healthy family, happy family. I was in great shape. But after 6 months, 7 months of soul searching, I realized that God was calling me to go back out and coach again. But the difference that time, and it really brings us up to today, was I recognized that all the strategy, all the process, all the systems, all the tools in the world does no good to an organization if the people are not whole and are not purpose driven themselves. And so as I coach individuals, agencies, that's really my goal, is to help them understand who they are in order to perform at the very best that they can. And so over the last 11 years, as I've been able to serve this industry, I have been blessed to speak from most of the industry conference stages a time or two. I've built a lot of great relationships with agency owners and a lot of solutions providers and carriers like yourself. And yeah, I just feel very fortunate to be able to be here doing what I love and help people to achieve the goals that they have for themselves.
It's always interesting. It's those personal connections, right? That we have that make all the difference in the world, and being relatable and approachable. And certainly, when we're working in the benefit space, I mean, gosh, I mean, many times this is like life or death, right? I mean,
Oh
we're
yeah,
working with employers, and fundamentally, those employees that we're serving them on their worst day, right?
yeah, yeah.
Right. We're not serving them when they're necessarily healthy per se, but certainly when things hit the skids. So, as we kind of think about mistakes, right, at a high level, that you've seen in your career, and working with different consultants, what are some of the common mistakes that you find when it comes to that kind of prospecting process, if you will?
Yeah, there is so much brokenness in this industry. Obviously, we would all be fools to not observe the fact that the insurance carriers, that providers, that health systems, that the government, that everybody is in some fault to the issues at hand. And so, as the result of that, there's so many solutions that are available, and I think solutions are great. The problem is almost every single salesperson, especially in today's day and age in the industry, is selling solution first. And again, I understand we see a problem and we need to solve the problem, or we have a desire to solve the problem. The reality of the matter, though, is nobody cares about a solution. Everybody cares about the challenge that they are personally facing and the outcome that they are looking to accomplish. Like nobody, I don't care if it's the CFO, the CEO, director of HR, nobody is losing sleep at night because of their benefits. And that's a crazy thing for me to say. Nobody's losing sleep at night because they're spending too much on benefits. Maybe there's about a month out of the year that they're freaking out about cost. But what they're losing sleep over is the fact that that business cannot sustain itself because they can't keep their employees, that business cannot accomplish the revenue goals that they have because they can't attract the right types of employees, or because their employees aren't productive, or their HR person is pulling their hair out because paperwork is up to here and they've got 17 different systems they're trying to manage and they don't know what to do with themselves. All that to say, So instead of being so solution focused, people need to go. Actually, I just wrote a blog or newsletter series on this. I think we need to go back to selling like it's 1995. And what I mean by that is we need to go back to being human beings to human beings. Every salesperson at one point or another has heard the adage, people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. But honestly, we have lost the ability to be people through the rapid acceleration of technology, then the pandemic, then AI. Technology has hindered our ability to be human beings. We don't know how to relate to people. We don't know how to sit down and just simply ask questions. We're afraid that we have to get through this in 5 seconds or we're going to be wasting time. And so we've just lost the capacity to just sit down and Stephen Covey. I'm a huge Stephen Covey fan. Seven Habits of Highly Effective People is the best sales book that exists. And if you're a salesperson and have not read that, you have made a huge mistake. But anyway, one of his seven habits is seek first to understand and then be understood. And again, it's this idea of like, I just need to sit down and understand who you are. I need to understand what makes you tick. I need to understand what you're challenged with. I don't need to tell you about what I'm selling. I don't need to tell you about the problem I'm going to solve for you. I just need to understand.
Excellent. Excellent. And
I love
I
that.
think Stephen Covey and that book is, again, I mean, that's like foundational, right? If you're in sales, that's like putting on your shoes in the morning.
Right.
You
Right.
really need to uh, hone in on some of those just core thought processes and authors that have just put out, timeless. I mean, this stuff's timeless, right? In
Yeah.
my opinion.
Well,
Liz,
and to that point, just real quick, like to that
yeah.
point, I just want every single person that's on this call right now or that will listen, I want you to just think about one instance that you've had in the last 11 months of this year, maybe even in the last couple weeks, in which you have presented the most logical solution to solve that prospect's problem. I mean, it is plain as day that what you have to offer will solve their problem. And it's an easy decision to make, and they still tell you no. And if the first thought in your mind is, I probably did not build enough trust with that person, you've missed it. Because again, like sales, we don't sell on logic. People don't buy on logic because if they did, and if we sold that way, we would be far more successful. People buy all emotionally. And that emotion needs to be rooted in a foundation of trust. And so if we're not spending the time to build that rapport because we're too freaked out, because if we don't close the deal, we're not going to meet our goal and everyone's going to lose their mind, then we're going to put ourselves into a really bad spot to begin with.
Makes total sense. Liz, I'm going to pass the key log over to you. I know you have some questions and thought processes around prospecting and whatnot.
I will grab the key log. Yes, I have some questions that kind of speak directly to what you've already started sharing, Ryan, which is so great. But yeah, I think there are probably a number of people on this call who, right, like, yes, we're all solution minded. There's so many issues in this space, and there's a lot of companies and a lot of consultants doing a poor job. So like we get
Mhm.
so excited by feeling we can deliver something better that, I've got what you need. Let me tell you all about it, right?
Yeah.
So that's all fair. And you absolutely want to share that kind of value prop. But let's think back to, okay, you're open up the door and you're walking out in the morning, or you're getting on that first call and making that first prospecting phone call for the day. How would you suggest we have benefits consultants rethink that first touch point, especially in a market where buyers are overwhelmed by options? You got potential solutions coming at you from every angle. What do you suggest a consultant start with?
That's good. A couple of things come to mind for me. Probably number one is we should live by the rule that we cannot close a deal on the first call, but we can lose a deal on the first call. And if we have that mindset, then we're going to stop selling right away, and we're going to instead start discovering right away. So if I go in prepared with, I mean, if we sat down and we had the time, we could probably come up with a couple of dozen questions that have nothing to do with health insurance at all, benefits at all, that we could ask another business, about their needs, about their challenges. So again, if we went out the door and approached that first conversation with, I'm not going to win this right now, but I can lose this if I'm not careful. So let me seek to understand. Let me ask questions. And I'll give this caveat too, because I started to rant on this a little bit ago, but when we have a very lean pipeline, when we have very few real prospects in our pipeline, we uh, we um, we sell from a scarcity mindset, and so we're always trying to close the deal. It's like, I've got to get this one over the finish line. If you have 100 prospects, then you're not going to rush to close anything, right? This is a long sales cycle. I mean, most significant sales in this space are going to be valued, though we don't always get paid all this, at a couple 100,000 to multi-million dollar decisions. No one's going to make that decision in one swoop. On top of that, it's a complex sale in the fact that there are multiple buyers involved in this decision-making process. So again, if we went into it saying, this is going to take me 6, 12, maybe 18 months to close this sale, but I'm confident that I've got the best solution and that I'm the best person to deliver it. So I'm going to go in and ask questions. I believe that that is one of the best ways to open the door and start the conversation. And by the way, just one more thing, and then I'll be quiet. A lot of salespeople are afraid to do that because they're afraid that they're wasting the prospect's time. And we've even sat down with the prospect, and the prospect has said to us, "Okay, so what do you got to sell me?" And
Right.
so here's a version of a line that I highly suggest that you take this note and or that you replay this over and over again until you figure out your polished way to say it. One of the things that I teach every salesperson to do is to sit down with a prospect, and when we're presented with that, which is basically, okay, sell me, that we are to say something to the effect of, I am not prepared yet to sell you the service that I have to offer to you because I don't know what you truly need. And so what I would like to do is take some time to understand your business goals, objectives, your challenges. And then once I have a better understanding, I'd be more than happy to share some ideas with you that can give you some perspective onto the direction that we can go together. So just address that situation. Just let them know, like, I want to sell you. By the way, salespeople never tell a prospect, I'm not here to sell you anything, because you have lied to them. They know you're lying, right? That's such a joke. So just be honest.
I'm
I
not here to
want to
sell
sell.
you today.
Right, right. I want to earn your business. I want your business, but I'm just not prepared to sell you anything right now. So let me ask you questions. Let me show you some value. Let me build a little bit of rapport. So that's usually the way out of the gate that I like to set salespeople up as they're getting started.
Ryan, it's interesting. You're kind of talking about kind of that prospect and that pipeline, if you will. And I kind of think about the thought process of top of funnel, right? And even before you even get in front of somebody, what are some of the trends or things as you're kind of working with consultants to that they can think about? Like, where do I even start? What are the is this a blast in emails? Are we sending direct mail? Are you joining the next B&I chapter? Like, what are some of the things that you're seeing are being, especially given the market today and technology and I mean everything that's out there, what would be, a couple pro tips, if you will, to get those 100 prospects, right? That you
Yeah.
don't have that pressure.
Yep. So my number one thing is go where your prospects are. So I love the fact that most salespeople today are blasting the crap out of LinkedIn, and their buyers aren't there. And I'm not saying it's poor. I feel like brand awareness on LinkedIn is wise for almost everybody. But if that's your primary driver for opportunity in this business, you're making a mistake. If you're a solutions provider, be on LinkedIn blasting your stuff because all the brokers are there. But if you're a broker trying to sell to an employer, they are probably not spending all their time there. So don't do that. Okay. That being said, in person in your local market is the number one best opportunity for you. So go to local events. Try to attend association and industry events that your prospect is attending. So if you are I don't know, if you're trying to sell to the milk menu, the milk processors, the dairy farmers, then go to the Dairy Farmers Association of America's local chapter event. Like those are beneficial. So those are good. Snail mail, if you can't get in front of the prospect, postcards, handwritten notes, those are phenomenal. So I'm going to tell a quick story, and I'm going to tell this in two parts. I'm going to try and do this really fast, but I just want you to know how important face-to-face is. And actually, it's funny, like these actually both started on LinkedIn, so this blows up my earlier argument. But I hear the story from a good friend of mine who was coaching a professional, and he couldn't get a CFO to call him back for the life of him. He's down in the Dallas area. The guy would not call him back. I mean, he's calling, email, voicemail, all these things, nothing's working. He starts digging into that CFO's LinkedIn profile and finds out that CFO was a fan of Thomas Jefferson. Maybe it was Thomas Jefferson. We'll just go with that. But it was a prominent figure from the past. So the salesperson goes online and buys a 12-inch replica bronze bust of Thomas Jefferson, boxes it up, and ships it to the dude.
Mhm.
Within minutes of arrival, he picks up the phone, calls the broker, and says, I cannot believe you did this. How did you know this? What's going on? I've got to meet you. Within months, he closed that deal. So I tell that story on I have a coaching community. I tell that story on one of my calls. One of my clients does the same thing, goes and does a bunch of research on his prospect, finds out that his prospect is a fan of Muhammad Ali. He goes on this website, he finds a 1-inch swatch of one of Muhammad Ali's trunks, and it's encased, certified, legit, puts it in the mail, sends it to the prospect. The prospect goes on LinkedIn and posts, I just received the most thoughtful gift I've ever received in my entire life, tags my client in there, and then calls my client. And my client says, or they talk on the phone. Again, they reiterate the same thing. And my client's like, all right, so what are we going to do here? Come in. Let's get into this conversation. And they ended up opening the door to being able to do business together. So again, that's like, be human, be personal, understand. You don't need to be blasting hundreds, thousands of prospects. Pick your top 50 and be more personal with them.
There's so much noise out there, right? I mean, people are getting blasted electronically, digitally, LinkedIn, email. I mean, you name it, right? Like it's just out of control. So standing out, right? I mean, you got to figure out a way to stand out and right, be thoughtful, right? People love to talk about themselves,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
And the second you can start to facilitate a forum for that, right? Even when the in person or whatever on the phone, I mean, people want to say things and that discovery, whether it be on a personal level or a professional level, I think that's so critical in developing the relationship. And to your point, I mean, these are hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million of decision making dollars, right? I
Yep,
mean, we always joke around, it's no joke. I mean, health insurance and benefits is typically second or third line item on their P&L.
yep.
And not only has a huge financial impact, but recruiting and whatnot. I
Oh,
mean, this isn't going to be like you fly in and you blast an email and you're going to close a deal. So having that
yep,
personal relationship and engaging in trust, and certainly even in today's age, right? Like trust, I think, is a big piece of the puzzle in our industry right now with
yep.
what's happened, in recent days.
So,
Liz, do you have any follow-up questions
yeah,
there? Yeah.
so kind of both of the points that you guys just made, like I think we've got some good context for our listeners on, okay, once you get there, don't act like an ass and just tell them all the solutions that you have because they don't care yet,
Yeah.
right? But okay, so helping to coach those on the call with us, how do they qualify who they should be investing that time and effort into without getting in front of them and finding out you've got the solution they've always wanted and didn't know yet? You know, most people kind of think that's the cue, that it's like, perfect, I'm gonna hound them until they say yes. But that really isn't the sales approach that we're talking about here. If we're thinking like meaningful conversations, building trust and relationship, how do we give our, webinar attendees right now some clues and ideas for how do they know who to focus on? Like what are some of the cues either from their research or from that first meeting to know, okay, this is one to drill down and find that Muhammad Ali swatch for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sure probably most people at this point have heard the term like ideal client profile or target buyer. I say that you need to choose people to work with, definitely that are aligned with who you can serve. So you want to consider location, company size, maybe even industry. Those things are important. But beyond that, it's more important than ever for you to choose prospects that align with who you are as an organization and who you are as an individual. So you want to make sure that they care about the same things that you care about. Like here's a simple example. You'd be hard pressed to find a company online that advertised that they treat their employees like crap, right? Almost everyone's going to say, we love our employees, we have a great culture,
Right.
but it doesn't take much extra work. Glassdoor, even though that's usually only negative, but it doesn't take much work to understand what organizations in the community are winning best places to work, are winning top, company of, X city or whatever. So I would say look to the organizations that align with your mission, with your vision, with your purpose. Um, if you are simple things, if you graduated from a college local to your area, look for alumni that have graduated from the same college. Look for people that have the same passions and interests that you do, because when we get in and sit down in front of somebody, we're not just building a business relationship, we are truly building a personal relationship. And I don't do business with people that 100% align with me on everything. There are definitely some non-negotiables, but there are things that are really important. So anyway, so I would just say aligned over purpose, mission, vision are really important. Another thing that's really important is study the industry that you're going to serve more than you study your own industry. I would rather a benefits sales professional know more about the manufacturing and distribution industry than they do about benefits, because there's always a benefits professional in their office that can be more technical to help. But if you're an expert in the industry that you serve, you are going to be much more apt to know their challenges, their needs, the news, trends, and things like that. So I think those are helpful things for you to understand. Be abreast of what's going on in their industry. That way you can talk to those things as well.
Ryan, it's interesting that you bring that up. I spend a lot of my time on finalist presentations and whatnot, alongside consultants and brokers that I work with. And as we, hop on those calls, I mean, every industry under the sun, from churches and ministries to, I had a call last week with a CPA firm. We do a ton of work in the automotive space, which I've played in, and even just understanding, kind of the terminology in their industry, and some of the challenges that they work with, right? So, like in automotive land, I mean, there's this concept of total absorption, right? So you're talking to an automotive dealer or a power sports dealer or somebody, and you throw that out, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, there, that dude's talking how does that guy know about that, right? And then you joke around with the finance guy that, could be on the call, and, You talk about the 300% rule, which is a known, concept in the automotive industry. So there's lots of things that as you start to think about their industry of even just the jargon that they use,
Mhm.
and then you take it one step further and kind of understand, when you're on the phone with a municipality per se, and they have budget constraints and they're worried about renewals, right? You can't go and they get a 38% renewal and they've budgeted 10.
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
say to the city manager, it's not like you can go sell more government. Go sell more government,
Right.
right? To make
Right.
up for your 35%. Or when you're on the phone with a ministry or church and you tell the pastor, don't worry, your renewal's 48%. Um, go sell more church. It's real
Right.
simple. You can solve that. And they're like, what are you talking about, man? So I
Yeah.
think that's so important, not only understanding the industry and really doing some background work, Google the company when you're on the call with them or whatever. I mean, do a little research, I think is so important. Liz, any other
Yeah.
thought processes around kind of that prospecting piece and whatnot that you have?
Yeah, I think one other question I'll ask for you, Ryan, in terms of being organized, right? Are there any tools or habits that you see top producers consistently use to stay organized and consistent in outreach or follow-up? Or I think a lot of people question or probably believe they fail in that department because we do tend to just run or chase or whatever shows up in our face that minute that we think is opportunity. And you're really kind of missing so much more opportunity when you're not organized or you don't have a specific skill set or approach. So what do you advise?
Yeah. There's a lot, but I'll speak to two specific things. So let me speak to the simple ones first. So plan your day, plan your week, plan your month, plan your year. So if you don't have a plan for prospecting, you're in deep-ish. So you got to be disciplined around that plan. So that's really important. But the two tools that we utilize for all of our salespeople, the first one is called the 1440. So we've developed a system. It's 14 touches over 40 days with one goal, and that's to get the prospect to call me back in the first place. So that's customized to that industry. And then they further customize it specific to that prospect. And those 14 touches are a combination of email, phone call, LinkedIn, snail mail, drop bys if I can do that. And so it's varying the mediums, it's varying the cadence, but it's creating consistency. So over 40 days, they've heard from me 14 times in order to be like, man, that person's serious. So that's one, and that's to get them to call me back. The other side of that is we find a lot of times that we can get a first conversation with a prospect, either on the phone or a first appointment. And they're like, yeah, I like what you have to say, but I'm just not interested right now. Or get back to me when my renewal happens in 10 months or whatever. And so, what a salesperson will typically do is put a date on the calendar for a couple of days before they told them to call them back, and then they'll reach back out to them. And or the in between, they'll send a couple of deathly emails that either include the words, I'm checking in or I'm just following up. Never, ever, ever use either one of those terms. Instead, what we've created is again, follow-up sequence. This is 7 touches that, depending upon the domain of time that they told us to get back with them, that can either be done every other week for 14 weeks, or it can be done once a month for 7 months. And that is an intentional cadence that re-engages them in the conversation we initially had. It provides value to them through educational resources, case study, but not a dumb white paper, but an actual narrative of case study. Um, and it offers them value. So I'm going to teach them one or more concepts that they can provide or that they can take and run with themselves without ever having to hire me. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stay engaged, build rapport, add value, and show them that if this is what I'll do for you without you paying me, could you imagine what I will do for you once you start paying me? And so between that 1440 up front and then the 7-touch sequence on the back end, we see a lot more conversion happening because there's intentionality, there's discipline, the templates are already built. It's a lot of copy and paste with minor tweaking. So the plan's already all there.
I like that a lot. I mean, staying kind of relevant, front of mind, and continuing to kind of build value in the relationship opportunity is just so key. And, I joke around sometimes and say, look, there's trigger events that happen, right? And
Yep.
as long as you're kind of honing around the front door, right? And they kind of know you're out there per se, and you left your card and you're kind of checking in, with value. At some point, a trigger event's going to happen.
Mhm.
They get a bad renewal, right? The incumbent broker does something or doesn't do something that makes them mad, right? So, you were in their office 3 months ago and you've continued to kind of, ping them a little bit. And your business card is in their file drawer and they're like, yeah, I'm going to call that guy now because, I got a bad renewal or we had a bad experience or something. So being relevant is, just so important. I think.
Here's a quick example of this happening that I just want to share with the audience. So, one of my clients, he is a small brokerage in Savannah, Georgia. And about 3 years ago, he identified this prospect, a couple thousand lives. It was going to be his biggest opportunity ever. He immediately saw some serious issues that the incumbent broker had put that client into, that employer into. And so he goes to the employer and he's like, look, I can help you out. I can change your life. And they're like, no, 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 you know what? We're good right now. And he's like, okay. So we hadn't been working together at that time. So he waits about 9 months, right? So 3 months out of the next renewal, he reaches back out to them. Hey, bet your situation hasn't changed. They respond back to him and they're like, yeah, but we're happy with where we're at. And we had just started working together. And he goes, I've got an idea. He puts together an entire strategy based upon everything that he knew about them from their 5,500, from some additional research, from some of the things that they did share with him the first time on the call. And he lays out an entire strategy for them. And he sends the whole thing over to them. And he says, hey, here's my entire strategy. Take it. He goes, if you want to hire me to implement it, great. If not, take it to your broker and you can hire your broker, or you can have your broker do it. And then he hears nothing. So for the next 6 or 7 months, twice a month, he just sends them a touch point, just a little something, little something. But wouldn't you know it, about 4 months ago, about 90 days out of renewal, he gets a call out of the blue from them. And they say to him, hey, you're never going to believe this, but that strategy that you gave us, we gave it to our broker. They put it into place and it's been incredible. We've had the best year that we've ever had. And he thinks to himself, oh crap, right? Like I just gave my best stuff away. And then she said to him, she said, you did that for us without us giving anything to you. And we've realized that if you're willing to do that for us without us hiring you, we have no idea what you would do for us if we hired you. So we want to make you our broker. And within days, they signed over broker of record. He landed his largest client and they are off and running together already. And so 3 years of patient endurance, frustration, giving his best stuff away, but he just trusted the process and stayed engaged. And I hear that story time and time again. Again, if he would have tried to shoot his shot year one and said either, crap or get off the pot, they would have just told him to kick rocks. But he was patient. He had a follow-up process. He stayed engaged, gave a lot of value, and it paid off. And that's a monster deal. I mean, it's like a 2,500 to 3,000 life case. Like anybody would love to have that deal. It changed his entire world. So those are out there for the taking if you're willing to be patient and you have a good process.
Such
Brian,
a good
one of the
point.
things that I kind of think about, you've gotten your way into the door, right? You have a meeting with the client. Maybe you're on your second meeting. You're perhaps in the process of putting together a solution or something like that makes sense for the client. What's kind of the, at a high level, just the framework, that kind of happens as you are working with a client, presenting, going back and forth. And then fundamentally, like, how do you get that thing over the finish line, right? Like, what's the proper time to ask for the sale, or get that broker of record, or whatever that might be, to kind of take it from a prospect to the end result.
I should get to a place where I have asked so many questions that the client or prospect, all of a sudden realizes that it's inevitable for us to work together. Like the close that I encourage all my clients to use is after the first meeting. So we have a good intro meeting, 20 to 30 minutes. We hit it off. And I get to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to come back and have a discovery meeting. I need more stakeholders at the table. I tell them to ask this question, which is, we've had a great conversation. We've gotten to know each other. Do you see any reason why we should not schedule a discovery meeting to have these three stakeholders at the table to discuss together? Well, no, I don't see any reason. Great. So let's put it on the calendar. When I get to discovery, if I've learned everything over 90 minutes, 2 hours, I've had a deep dive, then my question is, do you see any reason why we shouldn't schedule a time for me to come back and lay the entire strategy out with you so you can get a better idea of what it would look like to work together? No, I don't see a reason. When I deliver that final presentation to them, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get them to agree to my strategy, to my ideas, agnostic of hiring me. So along that whole final delivery of the presentation, what I'm trying to do is say, so in order to accomplish a goal like this for you, you recognize that you're going to have to start preparing for this 4 months out of renewal. Do you agree that that's probably the appropriate timeline? Yes, good. There's one yes. Okay, based upon everything we've learned about your plan, your employees, your whatever, it looks like the best decision for you would be to move to this specific provider, create a direct contract, do da 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 da. Do you agree? Yes, that would make total sense, right? So I'm getting all these yeses to agree to my theory, my plan, my idea. So then when I get to the end, I say the same thing again, which is, so David, do you see any reason why we should not move forward in you hiring me on as your broker to implement this solution for you? And here's the best part is if they say, I'm just not so sure, then all I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and say, okay, so hold on a minute. So we both agreed that the timeline that we discussed for you to accomplish these goals is this, correct? Yes. We both agreed that these providers, that this solution, this needs to happen in order. Yes. We both agreed that, yes. Okay, so we both agreed that everything that I've laid out for you is what you need to move forward on. So you're not sure about hiring me in order to do that? Yes. Okay, great. So let's talk some more about that. So I'm removing all the obstacles to get down to the true understanding of why they don't want to move forward. So, but it should be an inevitability. It shouldn't be something where, yes, I'm going to have to press them a little bit, but it shouldn't be something where I'm trying to fight them to hire me. I'm trying to show them that this is the path forward, the best path forward for them. And if it is, why wouldn't they hire me to do it? And if they decide not to, like in my other client's case, then here, take my strategy, go give it to your broker, see if they can do it for you. I'll call you back in 6 months and see how it's going.
Mhm.
Makes a lot of sense. That whole concept of yes velocity, right? Like you have sales velocity is just so powerful. It's funny
Yep.
in your description there. I didn't hear you say, let's look at this spreadsheet, right? I didn't hear that, man. Talk a little bit about that.
So data collection, spreadsheet creation is death by 1,000 cuts. I'm sure if I could look at every broker that's on this call right now, they're all shaking their head because they're all caught in that purgatory with at least one prospect right now. I want to caveat that by saying I understand that a lot of times you do need to have that type of information in order to present an accurate solution. But you should only ask for data once every other obstacle is removed. You should never, ever, ever go for so many salespeople in this industry, they go for the data first because they think if I just get a census, I can just show you what I'm made of. And it's like, if I called you right now, some person on this phone, Michael Guess, I see you're on this call. If I called Michael Guess and said, "Hey, Michael, I've got a way for you to make $1 million next month," Michael would think I'm a liar because that just sounds ridiculous. And so when you people are selling this idea, like these clients, these employers have been getting 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I heard of an 85% renewal the other day. They're getting these monster renewals. You call them and you tell them, I can do something better for you. As a matter of fact, I can save you 25%. They don't believe you. So stop trying to go for the number. Build value, build rapport, be patient, take that time, and only get to the spreadsheet, only get to the data when there's nothing left to do. It's literally like, if I'm able to present a solution back to you that saves you X amount of dollars, are you willing to hire me? Yes, great. Now give me the data. And then the last piece of that, and then I'll be done, is understand that even just collecting a census from a prospect is a heavy lift on their part. Because you may say, well, that's just jumping into their Ben admin system or whatever and downloading a spreadsheet. And it may be, but guess what? They're freaking busy and they're not doing your job. And so make it as easy as possible. Be patient, try and find seamless ways to retrieve that data, try and use your expertise and experience to foreshadow what's possible for them based upon their size, their demographic, their solution, their 5,500 before you start pulling data. Because I'm telling you right now, again, you all know this, you have all had a great meeting and said, okay, now just give me a census and I'll go to work. And it's crickets. It's because the census is never the thing that gets you across the finish line. It's usually the thing that prevents it.
Agreed. Yeah, I think you're so spot on. We're the fire is getting a little light. We're running out of firewood, if you will. And I know Liz has some questions around kind of mindset and whatnot. And one of the things that's interesting is kind of as a follow-up on that topic of, the census and the data and the spreadsheet and whatever. So oftentimes, if you want to be a commodities broker and you view health insurance as a commodity, then yeah, that spreadsheet is, I mean, you're just competing against everybody. It's a race to the bottom. This guy showed me the lowest rate and away we go, right? And I think that's where I see, and I work with thousands of consultants all around the country that those that have the mindset to really move into the trusted advisor role, right, with a long-term vision I mean, it's amazing. It's transformative in my opinion. And the they put together a strategy that is sustainable, right? And talk to, and Liz, I know you have some questions around mindset, but how do we think about those things, right? And build those long-term relationships.
I mean, I think one of the most important things is, do you actually believe what you're saying? Um, I think that there's a lot of doubt in the minds of salespeople because they're not so sure that they can actually deliver on what they say. And so stop saying it. Just be honest about what you actually are able to accomplish. By the way, I always try to do this because I like to frustrate people. Stop using the term imposter syndrome. Stop believing that that's even a real thing. Here's why. You may doubt your ability to be able to step into the arena. You may doubt your ability to be able to step on stage or to get in front of a prospect, but words matter. And the term imposter syndrome, though it has been turned into something else, an imposter is somebody seeking to do something nefarious. It is somebody that is seeking to do something evil. You are not stepping into the arena with ill intent. And if you are, get out of this business because we don't need you here, right? If you have fear, if you have doubt, that is okay. Just be honest about the fact that we're all figuring this thing out together. I have been in sales since 1999, and I still hire people to teach me. I still go to conferences to learn how to get better at this. We are all somewhere on this spectrum. And so just be honest with yourself. And by the way, again, back to what I said way earlier, if you go out there and just be a human being, if you go out there to just to align with other people that think like you, that do business like you, then you just get to go have a conversation. You don't have to worry about putting all this pressure on yourself to answer every question and to have everything figured out. You don't know it all, and you don't need to, and they're not expecting you to. You go in there and start talking about captives and self-insurance and stop loss and DPC. You're over their head, but they're nodding at you, and all the while they're totally checked out. Just go be a human being. It is one of the greatest gifts you can give to your prospect and to yourself. And I feel that from a mindset perspective, that is the reinforcement most people need is wait a minute, I can just go be myself. I can just go build a relationship with another human being. And if it elevates to a certain level, maybe I'll get the business or I'll get a referral to somebody else's business. I'm all about it.
Well, I love that. And I'm sure you've got everyone on the call like excited to do things better. And every person on this call, myself included, we can think of one thing to take away from this. We're like, we could do that better, or maybe all of it, right? But okay, so in the scope of mindset and growth, let's kind of start to wrap this up a little bit about what about rejection? It all sounds really awesome when you're like, I'm going to go win. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to ask all the questions. And let's say you're either not good at it or it's just bad timing and you're just getting rejected, rejected, rejected. And you start to doubt your new position, your path, the what you're intending to do with so much more purpose and authenticity. What can you tell people to not let them throw in the towel and just bring back the spreadsheet? You know?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Liz. So I do this exercise with every client that is called learning to tell yourself the truth. And so we've all heard that, sales is full of rejection. Most of us are probably batting about 1%. If you think about it, it takes about 100 prospects to close one deal. And people will say, well, I close 25 to 50%. That's because you're like taking it all the way from the qualified range. Anyway, so we're getting rejected all the time. Failure sucks. It hurts. I think we need to give ourselves the space to hurt and be frustrated when we're failing, for sure. But this exercise around telling ourselves the truth is if I am not succeeding, it is likely because there is something that I do need to do better. But it's not because I am not good. It's
Mhm.
because I have not learned or progressed to the place to be able to do this well. But that could be out of choice. Again, like that's what it means to tell ourselves the truth. We can all be good at sales if we learn to ask the right questions, say the right things, build the right relationships, add value. But if you're not succeeding, it's probably because you're not doing something right. You're talking to the wrong people. You're asking the wrong questions. You're selling too early. So be honest with yourself. That's why having a cohort of friends, colleagues, mentors, a coach is so helpful because other people can reflect back to you the objective truth around what they're seeing existing. I have clients that will come to me and be like, I don't know how I lost this deal. And we go back through it, and I'm like, you lost it here and here and here and here. So either fix those things or just keep losing them over and over again. So I really want to encourage people like failure sucks. Don't be okay with it. I don't like when people say, oh, it's okay to fail. It's like, no, we don't want to fail. We want to win, and that's okay. But if you want to win and you hate failure or it hurts you, then be honest with yourself about where you need to grow and where you need to get better. You are not a failure. You have failed. You are not a crappy salesperson. You're just struggling. Like that's not our identity. Our identity is not in our successes, and our identity is not in our failures. Our identity is in who put us here in the first place. And then from that, we're just launched into this opportunity to do the best job we can with what we've been given. And if you want a better result, work on it because the opportunities are out there. There is a plethora of information out there available to every single person. But you got to be honest enough to say, I have responsibility in this and I'm going to do something about it.
Man, that's so inspiring, right? And certainly, having self-awareness is so important. And even one of those things of self-awareness is understanding that there are resources out there to get, help, right? Sometimes you're so deep in the forest, ironically, right? That you need someone to say, hey, man, here's where you could do better, right? To get
Yeah.
the desired outcome. So working with coaches and people like yourself and peer groups and others is just so important. And you don't have to be an expert by any stretch of the imagination. And this industry keeps changing.
Yeah.
But at least having the self-awareness to ask for help, right?
Yes.
To understand where to go, to get a coach, to get a mentor, et cetera, et cetera. So we're gonna start to kind of wrap this up. Ryan, if there was one thing, one final thing, right? This is like the mic drop. You ready? That you would give to all the folks around the campfire today to elevate their game this year, right? As we go into Q4, there's lots of opportunities on the table. What would be that one thing that you would advise?
I was hoping you were going to tell me that. Um, um, I would go back to a version of what I was just saying. Like, I think at the end of the day, I think our biggest problem is we're just constantly trying to be something or somebody that we're not. Um, if you want to be successful, figure out who you are, figure out where your strengths are and your weaknesses, and go be the best version of that person. I mean, in a business like this, especially for you brokers, in your target market, unless you're serving micro groups, you don't need to sell but 3 to maybe 10 cases at the most a year. It's really not that difficult if you focus on being yourself and aligning yourself to the right types of people in the right environments. But it all comes back to us. Like you have what it takes if you're willing to put in the work to do it. You don't need more tools, you don't need more strategies. You just need to be focused on you. And if you are, I believe you can be successful. I find it time and time again in the clients that I work with.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us around the fireside today, and I mean, truly inspiring those that this is a pretty rough time for all of us. Renewals have been pretty challenging, but having some inspiration and some tools there has been extremely valuable. Liz, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Yes, I'm ready. I already
With
pulled a
our
name out of hat.
yeah, with our drawing for the Angle Health Stanley. So who is our lucky winner today?
Lucky Chad Huff.
Awesome. So do us a
Congrats,
favor.
Chad.
Yeah,
Thanks for
Liz will give
joining
some
us.
instructions while I kind of switch screens here. What should Chad do to claim his prize?
Should he email? I don't recall.
Yeah, so
Okay.
send a note to sales
Sales at
sales at
anglehealth.com.
anglehealth.com, sales at anglehealth.com. And we will get that out to you ASAP. I'm going to switch screens here for a moment, see if I can get this thing to work, if you will.
Ryan, thank you again so much. Everyone here, if I may speak for everyone, we're so grateful that you took the time to share your teachings and wisdom in this space with us. I guarantee we will all do better because of it.
I'm
Agreed.
honored to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hey, I'm going to draw everyone's attention to the slide I just put up here, kind of forward looking. If you don't have your iPhone out or Android, feel free to scan that QR code. Next week, we're going to conclude our fall fireside chat series with Cuban on Care. Fair pricing in healthcare, November 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Interestingly enough, Mark Cuban, perhaps you have heard of him, founder of Cost Plus Drug Company and certainly a shark, cuts through all the noise on why healthcare is broken and why healthcare really looks like and how we can start fixing the system. For those that want to get a little bit more information, certainly send an email to sales@anglehealth.com. Thank you again, Ryan. So insightful, and always, every time I interact with you, I'm just inspired, man. So I appreciate you spending some time with everyone around the campfire today. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon, everybody. We will get a recording out of this this afternoon. So if you are on the distribution list and registered and or attended, you will receive a copy. And we look forward to y'all joining us next week as we have our final kind of campfire of the year.
So excited. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you next week.
Awesome. Take care, everybody.
Thanks again, Ryan.